afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Bayou Bets for Thursday, June the 29th. I'm Zach Ewing. With me today is Spencer the Guru Urquhart, back from Omaha, back in my house is nice and cool. I have a new AC. Spencer, what do you know about that?
Yeah, they finally replaced mine. I was having AC trouble, but feeling a lot cooler here now, and yeah, ready to get recap this crazy year in sports.
Yeah, let me tell you something. Not replacing a broken AC unit in Louisiana for a landlord is criminal. And I don't,
Tell
your
me
landlords
about it.
probably aren't listening, but that goes beyond criminal. That's like cruelty, man. Um,
Oh, it was rough. It
how
was
how
rough.
many days were you without air conditioning?
Well, the main part of the house had it. It was just like my part of my room because it's a window unit for that, so they had to replace the window
Yeah.
unit. So let's just say I was in the living room a lot the past
I
few
was gonna
weeks.
say I'm sleeping on the couch, man. I'm putting myself on the couch if that happens. So yeah, it is flipping hot out there. Like I thought there's a couple days in Omaha that it was warm and humid, and you're like, oh, this isn't that much different than Louisiana. And then I stepped off I hopped off the plane at MSY, and then I got out of the airport, and my glasses are like, poof, and I can't even see,
Yeah, it's
like just
bad.
totally fogged over, and I'm going, yeah, this is different. It doesn't take too long to forget how bad it can get here in the summer. So hopefully you are all out there beating the heat. As Spencer said, we are going to recap the year in sports because to me, and I don't know how many people agree with me, to me, the end of college baseball season is kind of the end of one sports year and the start of another. It's not perfect because baseball season's going, like WNBA season's going, the golf and tennis seasons are going. So there's no perfect time to do this, but to me, it's as natural a time as any because there won't be another sport starting or finishing for several months now. They're all either started or finished, and so it'll be, shoot, I guess like September, October by the time we get to baseball playoffs, WNBA finishing up, that sort of thing, and then football and soccer and all those things don't start up until August. So it's a good time to look at it. We're going to look at LSU and how their odds stacked up in baseball. We're also going to look at LSU women's basketball, of course, won a championship this past year. The Astros, the Nuggets, the Golden Knights, the Chiefs. We'll look at it all. Um, and take you through that. We also are going to look at Major League Baseball, kind of a midseason reset. Might look at some Wimbledon odds. We'll look at some NBA free agency stuff, and the Saints. We'll talk a little bit about the Saints and Derek Carr saying more than I actually thought he would ever say about his breakup with the Las Vegas Raiders. Spencer.
Oh yeah. It was. He said a lot. He said, and it makes sense because it was appeared to be an ugly breakup. So yeah, we'll get to that later. That's definitely interesting that he spilled that.
Yeah, absolutely. Jerry's here. What's up, Jerry? Glad you could be here yet again. And so, lots to get to on today's show. Let's kind of dig right into it with our headlines. And as we mentioned, like it, if you've been living under a rock and you don't know, LSU did win the national title in baseball. Their seventh for baseball on Monday night, beating Florida 18-4 up in Omaha. Came back down to Baton Rouge. Big crowd greeted them Tuesday when they got back to Alec Box, and then last night an even bigger crowd, some fireworks unveiling the banner, all that kind of stuff as national champs. So congrats again to the Tigers. Baseball, that's not German, that's Herman Perfecto. Domingo Herman of the Yankees threw a perfect game last night, and not that many people saw it because it was in Oakland and it ended at like 11:30 at night. And it was against like a AAA team, so I'm not going to discount any perfect game, but it was just sort of a strange situation, Spencer. Meanwhile, speaking of strange, Shohei Ohtani just continues to amaze through 6 2/3 innings with 10 strikeouts the other night and also hit 2 homers. I mean, just doing things nobody thought possible.
Yeah, he's about to cash in. He's hitting free agency, having a career year, and I figured it was possible, but I didn't think he'd do quite this well. It's so incredible what he's been doing. He's keeping the Angels afloat because it's like outside of him, the Angels don't have much. I mean, Trout's not doing as well this year, but with him carrying the team, you normally don't think of baseball as a sport where one individual can carry the team, but he's doing his best.
He has been absolutely phenomenal, no question about it. So, it's tell you what, man, it's something else to watch him. Elsewhere, we have NBA free agency starting tomorrow. A lot of guys could change teams. It doesn't seem like a lot will. So we'll see what happens there. And then Wimbledon starting Monday. So if you're a tennis fan, good time of year for you. I'd like to remind everyone we're brought to you by Caesars Sportsbook. Check them out, NOLA.com/Caesars if you haven't signed up already. And subscribe to the Bayou Bets YouTube channel. We're up over 100 subscribers. Join the party. We're growing fast. We've doubled in size in just a couple of months. So hoping to continue that rate of growth. If you haven't already, I know a lot of you watching on Facebook or on the NOLA.com YouTube channel. Go over to the Bayou Bets YouTube channel and hit subscribe for us and sign up for notifications. Jerry says, congrats, LSU. And let's get there. Let's get to our championships odds. And we kind of went through, you can look on bet.nola.com. I went through 12 notable championships, if you will, the big ones: NBA, NFL, Major League Baseball, NHL, WNBA, men's, women's, college basketball, college baseball. There's more you could add. English Premier League, Champions League, couple of the World Cup, some soccer in there as well, and found the longest odds of anybody who won a championship in the last year belonged to two teams, Spencer. One was LSU women's basketball. The other was UConn men's basketball. 60-1, both of those teams cashing in on you. And by the way, if you had parlayed, and I'm not even sure this was possible because I don't think college baseball odds were out yet before the college basketball season started. But if you had been able to parlay LSU baseball and women's basketball to win the national title, that would have paid, let's just call it a $10 parlay on those two. You would have won $3,650. So that would have been a good outcome for you.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, the LSU women's basketball was a surprise to me because it was just like, everyone assumed South Carolina would win it, being the chalk favorite. And then that championship game was so fun to watch between LSU and Iowa. Really helped to me get women's basketball on the map as far as like everyone was talking about it. And I'm excited for next season because Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese are coming back. So yeah, definitely excited to see if LSU women can keep this thing going. And yeah, congrats. They're 60-1. They pulled it off. You never count out a Kim Mulkey team.
No. Well, and the amazing thing is, and I know you wrote about it after the LSU women won the title. They were still like 25-1 to start the NCAA tournament. Like they were still pretty much long shots at that time. And it was the presence of South Carolina, and they had some good teams in their region as well. And some upsets paved their path a little bit easier, if you will. I will say this about LSU baseball: nobody paved their path. Jay Johnson said this the other night, and at first I thought it was just kind of coach speak, but then I went back and looked at it, and I think he's right. At every point in the postseason, the LSU baseball team faced the most difficult opponent that it could face. And I'm serious. They were number 1 seed, so they get Tulane. They get the number 4 seed. But Tulane was a red hot number 4 seed. They just won a good conference tournament. So they got that. And then they had to face Oregon State twice in that regional, which was the number 2 seed. So they didn't get any breaks there. Then they had to face the other national seed, Kentucky, out of the opposing bracket in the super regional. And then you get to Omaha, and they had to face Tennessee, who was, okay, they weren't a regional number 1 seed, but they started the year as number 2, clearly a very good team. Had to face them twice. Had to face the number 1 team in the country twice in Wake Forest. And then once they got to the finals, or had to face Wake Forest 3 times, they got to the finals and faced the number 2 team in the country in Florida 3 times. So you could not have asked for a more difficult path or expected a more difficult path for LSU baseball. And they passed that test with flying colors.
Yeah, and it shows that their talent won out. Like, they were a preseason favorite for a reason. They're the most talented team. They're in some roadblocks down the stretch, which, heading into this College World Series, Wake Forest was the overall favorite. And it remained that way till LSU knocked them out to get to the finals. So, yeah, definitely had their work cut out for them, but they answered the call I think it kind of goes to the point like Jim was saying that they kind of, not saying they intentionally lost down the stretch, but I feel like they kind of pulled back the reins a bit there in order to get fueled up for this postseason run, and they delivered.
Yeah, I think it's you never mean to lose, but sometimes it is good to go through that slump. And by the way, LSU women's basketball did the same thing. They lost that SEC tournament game to Tennessee and kind of lulled everyone to sleep and said, "Oh, they're good. They had a good year, but they're kind of running out of gas. Not national title material. Kim Mulkey will get there." And then they just won it out of nowhere.
Yeah, that was wild, because it's like, yeah, I think the game, forgot the game Zoe would probably know where they really made a statement. I think it was their second round game. I might be wrong, but like they did a
Was it
game
Ohio
there.
State?
Yeah,
I
where
think it
they
was
like
Ohio
pulled
State.
off a big one. We're just like, wow, yeah, they're back. They're back
No,
in the
Zoe says
mix.
Michigan. I'm sorry. Ohio
Michigan,
State fans
yeah.
will never forgive me. It was Michigan, not Ohio State.
Yeah,
Ohio
because
State
it
beat him in
was
the second round last year.
for sure. Yeah, because it was yeah, they kind of like got people back fired up, and then they just kept the momentum going all the way to that Iowa game, which a lot of people didn't really give them much of a chance in that because of Caitlin Clark, but they slowed her down enough to get it done.
Yeah, and they add Haley Van Lith, the Louisville transfer next year.
Yeah, that's huge.
It's going to be really good again next year. And I know UConn's going to be good. They get Paige Beckers back, but it's going to be fun to watch women's basketball next year too. So that's kind of our wrap up of the year that was. Of course, we had the Chiefs winning at 11-1. We had the Houston Astros winning at 10-1. Nuggets were 16-1. The Vegas Golden Knights were, I think, 20-1. Preseason won the Stanley Cup, so a little bit longer, but not a ton of surprises this year. It's been a while since we've had a true long shot champion like 100-1 or higher in one of the major sports. In fact, I'm kind of struggling to think even who that might be.
Yeah, one that comes to mind, and this is over a decade ago, but the New York Giants, like back when they got snuck in as a wild card and then went and beat the Patriots.
Yeah, I'll bet you they weren't 100-1 though.
Yeah, probably not, because they did have a good defense, and
Yeah,
Eli was pretty good at that time.
To get to 100-1, you either have to be one of the worst teams in one of the major pro sports, or it has to be college, because there's just not enough teams in these pro sports to make you 100-1. I just it's going to be difficult to get there.
Yeah,
So
well, the Joe Burrow Bengals from not this season, but the season before that they went there, and I remember I did that story on the better that cashed in on them to win the AFC at like I don't think it was quite 100-1, but it was I think like 50-1 or 60-1.
yeah, and that's actually a good call, because that would have been clearly 100-1 had they finished off that run, and they came pretty close to doing that. By the way, they just couldn't finish the job against the Rams, but that's a good pull as well. Leicester City won the Premier League at 500-1 a few years ago.
Oh,
Actually,
wow.
I think it was more. I think it was 1,000-1 back in
Jeez.
2015. So that's the one that always comes to mind for me. But I don't, we haven't had a real long shot one. So maybe we'll get one this year. Let's see what happens. And I want to use that to transition into some Major League Baseball. We're going to talk, World Series odds, MVP, Otani kind of bounce around here. Luis Ariz is still hitting 398 for the Miami Marlins. We'll talk about him. That's a little precursor to Spencer's rant. But right now, the Tampa Bay Rays, who started out so hot, are about to get caught. They made a comeback in the ninth inning last night to stay with the best record in baseball. But if they lost that game, they actually would have been caught for the best record in baseball by the Atlanta Braves, who are red hot, and they're down to just 4-1 to win the World Series.
Yeah, the Braves look like by far the best team because they got some pitching injuries and they're still winning almost every night. I mean, they're on another level right now. I know the Dodgers are still doing their thing and could have some dark horses, which I'll get to here in a little bit. But yeah, the Braves, I mean, 4-1, you never want to bet the favorite in MLB, but in this case, I might throw a couple bucks on it because it's just like they just look that good and they should be getting healthier here down the stretch to make them even scarier.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I don't see a ton of value in this market, and you hate to bet a favorite because, like you said, you probably missed them at better odds. Daniel's here. What's up, Daniel? Let's take a look at the full list here. It's not the full list, but the top 15 or so. The one team I'll throw out there, maybe two teams I'll throw out there, are the Yankees and Blue Jays at 14-1 and 18-1. Yankees aren't healthy right now, but if they get healthy, they're going to be dangerous in the playoffs. And the Blue Jays, who haven't really put it all together, but they still have that talent. I mean, and they're in a decent position. You see the Padres below them. The Padres are going to have to rally just to make the playoffs. The Blue Jays are still in pretty good position to make it into the postseason. And then if they could get Alek Manoah back to even close to what he was last year, add to that Kevin Gausman and the staff that they have, and with the lineup they have, 18-1 is not a terrible look at the Blue Jays, I don't think.
Right. Yeah, I'm worried about Manoa. I mean, he got destroyed in a rookie
He
game.
did.
They gave up like 8 runs.
Did.
He's just, I think there's something wrong with him to where I don't think they'll be able to count on him. But even with that, I still think they're somewhat of a value at 18-1 because of their lineup. They're going to have to try to make a big addition at the trade deadline to get some starting pitching help because I liked them before the season, but I was banking on them having Manoa be their ace, and now they're missing that ace presence. I mean, Gossman's done well, but you need another guy out there to have a 1-2 punch, which is why I like the Phillies as my value at 30-1. I really like them because they've got a really good lineup and they've got the ace and Zach Wheeler, and then Aaron Nola hadn't really been pitching like an ace, but we know what he's capable of. Plus Ranger Suarez, I got him in fantasy. He's been really good lately. So I'm thinking this Phillies team could be sneaky. I mean, they made the run last year. I know it's tough to do that 2 years in a row, but at 30-1, I'll take a shot.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. I don't know that I see the Phillies getting there again. And you talk about long shots, and I'm going to look at the odds here because they're still pretty much a long shot, but not what they were at the beginning of the year. What do we make of the Cincinnati Reds? They just took 2 out of 3 from a good team in Baltimore. They had won 11 in a row before they ran into the Braves, and they at least didn't get swept by the Braves. But they're sitting at 80-1. They're winning that division. Do you see any chance that this young team kind of grows up? They do have some top end starting pitching, or at least potential top end starting pitching, Spencer and Hunter Green and a couple of other young guys. Any chance you take a sprinkle on the Reds?
I don't think I will. I was looking at them because they've been winning so much, and I mean, Green's banged up now, and Lodolo's hurt. Like they've got a lot of promising young pitching. I think they could be scary within the next year or two. But I think for this year, they've been playing over their heads. They've got some bats, Ellie De La Cruz and stuff. They've got a very bright future. They went through a rough rebuild, and they've got the young pieces now to where they should be good. I mean, they're playing good right now, but I just don't see that lasting. I think someone in the Central, probably the Brewers, will probably just win it by default because, I mean, the Central is really bad. I mean, the AL Central's bad too, but the NL Central, my gosh, what a disaster. I wouldn't touch
Yeah,
any team from either of those divisions. Those 10 teams, none of those 10 teams have a chance at the World Series, in my opinion. They are
but you know
garbage.
what? You know what the thing is, and I'm glad Horace brought this up for multiple reasons because I can brag. I actually have the Reds at 66-1 to win the Central, and I have the Pirates at 80-1, and they were winning it for a while and they faded. And what's more, I have the Cubs at 14-1 to win that division. So as long as the Cardinals, your Cardinals have been a
Yeah,
disaster,
they're
quite
not
frankly.
winning it. They have no
Um,
pitching, no
so
pitching
basically,
whatsoever. They're not winning it.
I make out pretty good as long as anybody besides the Brewers wins that division. But I would love to see the Reds win it. Horace says Diamondbacks and Orioles look like some value as we bring those odds back up. Diamondbacks 28-1. They're winning. They are winning the NL West right now, and then the Brewers at 40-1. Or you said the Orioles. Orioles are at 30-1. See, the Orioles are my team. I think fade a little bit. I like them. I think they'll make the playoffs. I don't think they have the pitching to go anywhere in the playoffs.
Right. Yeah, both of these teams, again, with bright futures, but probably a year away. I think that's why they're tempting you. The books are tempting you to take them because they both have really good records right now. But to me, they're kind of a sucker's bet because I'm pretty sure that they're gonna both regress. I think they could both make the playoffs, but I mean, to make a World Series run, that takes a whole nother level of grit and experience. I just think that they're too young.
Yeah, I mean, you say that, but I will say this just to kind of close the conversation on the Reds at 80-1. If you think they can get in, and my whole thought on those bets that I made in the NL Central is that I just don't think the Brewers or Cardinals were all that good. I thought they were overvalued by the market. I do still think the Brewers will fade. We'll see. They probably have the best chance of anybody still, but let's see what happens. And if you get in and you have a ticket on a team at like 80-1 once they get into the playoffs, man, anything can happen. You win that division, you don't have to mess with that best of 3 series. And we saw last year the Dodgers go out early, the Braves go out early. Some really good teams just bowed out. And I know we've gotten used to the Astros just every single year being a machine and making it. But weird things can happen. It just take, even the Astros last year swept my Mariners in the division series, but all three of those games were very close. Two of them were exceedingly close. And if they just coin flip the other way, the Astros could have gone out early. So I don't, if you could get a team at 80-1 who makes the playoffs, you're in pretty good shape because anything can happen.
Yeah, you never know what can happen for sure. It's just like, it's just there's teams like I feel like by and large the experienced teams tend to win out, but it's just if there is a young team that you think's got a chance to maybe do something, could be worth a couple bucks. I just prefer to I feel like the experience factor is usually wins out.
Yeah, unfortunately, your dad is right. I only bet a couple dollars. I accidentally actually bet like $4 on the Pirates because I didn't think I made the bet and then thought I hadn't and made it again. So that would be the one that actually makes me the most money. But they faded a little bit. Yeah, it's just a couple dollars. It was for fun, and you all laughed at me on opening day about biting the Pirates and Reds, and here we are. We'll see if it
Yeah,
lasts.
I can
But it's a
see it
good story.
now. I can
Yeah,
see it now
it's
because I was kind of blinded thinking, oh, it'll be good. Cardinals or Brewers, and I still think it'll be the Brewers. But I've thought my Cardinals might struggle, but I didn't think it'd be this bad. My God, if I knew the pitching was rough, but holy crap, that pitching staff is. I could do a whole rant on that. My gosh.
And my thought is that 83, 84 wins might win that division, and it still might. And betting the Pirates or Reds to get to 83, 84 wins is not crazy. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. MVP odds. We talked about Shohei Ohtani at the top of the show. I mean, minus 1,200 to win the AL MVP. He's like plus. I think he's like 11-1 to win the Cy Young Award. So he could potentially win both as a two-way player, which would be phenomenal. The only competition there is Corey Seager, and that's missing a zero. That's a typo. He's 30-1. And I think everybody else is 50-1 or more. I do like Corey Seager. I actually bet him to win the MVP before the season. I also bet Ohtani at plus 220 or something. The Seager's problem is he missed a good chunk of time early in the year with injury, but he's set up well. And we haven't talked about the Rangers. Rangers playing very well.
Oh yeah. It's a shame DeGrom got injured because they look like they could be World Series contenders. Their lineup from 1 to 9, that might be the best lineup in MLB. They are scary. I mean, they have no holes. Everyone hits.
Yeah, their lineup's phenomenal. I agree with you. I think DeGrom not being there is going to leave their rotation a little shallow. It's going to be tough for them to hold off the Astros and potentially the Angels in that division. So we'll see. And then in the National League, Ronald Acuna having a fantastic season. He's the odds-on favorite to win MVP. Couple more challengers there under 10-1. Corbin Carroll of the Diamondbacks and Freddie Freeman of the Dodgers.
I think there's value with Freddie Freeman at plus 750. I might put a couple bucks on that because we know he's so consistent and having a really good year. Could do even better in the second half as the guy for the Dodgers. Him and Mookie Betts. They used to have more other guys in that lineup. Now it's more Freeman and Betts, and they're still up there. I mean, Dodgers are still an elite team. So I think Carroll, it's a great story. Diamondbacks have been great, but like I said earlier, I think they fall off a little bit. So I think this is probably be a 2-horse race between Freeman and Acuna. But to me, there's just you can't bet Acuna at that price. I know he'll probably win it, but it's just there's no value in that. You missed the boat on that. If you want to bet this, take a shot on Freeman and hope he passes him.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, Acuna's been fantastic, but he's also a little bit injury prone. So
yeah, the way he plays kind of reckless. Where with Freeman, it's like he plays 160 pretty much every year.
And that's the other thing about Ohtani is you clearly cannot don't bet him at minus 1,200 because he's just minus 1,200 to stay healthy basically. And how do you know? I mean, the guy gets hurt, and now if it happens in September, he'll probably still win the MVP. If it happens in July or maybe even August, then he's going to leave the window open depending on how long he's out for. So I would not mess with that. You're watching Bayou Bets here on bet.nola.com and the Bayou Bets YouTube channel. Do us a favor, go over to the YouTube channel and subscribe. Hit the like button for us and help us out. Want to move the discussion on to NBA free agency, which opens tomorrow, I think at 1 o'clock. Is that right? So we're going to start, or at least that's the quote unquote legal tampering period where teams can start talking to other teams. We've got next year's finals odds down there for you. The question I have is, this week seems to bring drama to the NBA every year. LeBron's going somewhere, Kawhi Leonard's going somewhere, somebody demands a trade, James Harden ends up somewhere. But right now, it kind of looks like, and there's odds out there in the market where you can bet on the next team a guy will end up with. And everybody's kind of heavily favored to stay where they're at. Damian Lillard, James Harden, Kyrie Irving, Chris Middleton, Draymond Green. All these guys are sort of expected to stay with the teams that they're currently with. So somebody's probably going to move. Some drama is going to happen. But where do you think it'll be, Spencer?
I think James Harden moves for sure. You know, they said the report that came out that he's him and the Sixers, that he's going to opt into his option and they're going to look to facilitate a trade. So I definitely think he moves. The big domino, though, to me is Damian Lillard, because if he ends up traded, then I think all hell breaks loose and there'll be all kind of moves following that. So the Harden thing, I think, is kind of expected. Like, it'll set off some shockwaves. I mean, James Harden's really good, but Damian Lillard, I think, would be even more interesting because he's never played anywhere but Portland. James Harden, he moves all the time. It's like his fifth team or something. Like, that's nothing new. Kyrie Irving, the same thing. It's like those guys they're always on the move. They're never satisfied. They never seem to fit in well wherever they go. Where Damian Lillard, though, that's someone that could really put a team over the top. Someone like the Heat or the Lakers, someone that's just needs like one more piece to really be up there with the Nuggets and Celtics. So keep an eye on Dame, because since they drafted Scoot Henderson, I just don't really see where those two really fitting in well together. Scoot Henderson's more of a point guard, and we know Dame Lillard's one of the best point guards. I mean, it's just, if I'm Portland, I'm turning a new page. I drafted Scoot Henderson, moving Dame, getting a lot of pieces to build around Scoot, and wherever Dame goes, they're going to be set up well, because he's someone that he's never really had a chance to contend for a championship. And I think if he goes somewhere where he can, he'll bring the heat to wherever he goes. It might be the Heat. I think the Heat would probably be, wasn't even intended on that pun, but now that I'm thinking about it, I think the Heat would probably be his best landing spot, him and Jimmy Butler together. Woo, that'd be tough to stop.
That would be interesting. And I was going to ask you to call your shot, but I think you just did. Said Lillard to the Heat. So, actually, it's funny because when I was looking those odds up, Harden was favored to stay with the Sixers, but clearly that has changed over the last hour or so, where he's got this. He's basically been cleared to be traded. So we'll see where James Harden ends up. I don't know. Is James Harden still a difference maker in the NBA, though? Is he a guy where you add him to a team and you go, okay, that team was a playoff team, but now they're a championship contender? Is he still that level?
Not in my opinion. I think he's, at this point, I'd want him as a third piece. Like, look, we're going to take you on, you're coming in, you're going to score, pass, but you're not going to do too much. Just be a third piece. The issue is it's reminding me of a lot like Russell Westbrook, and we saw it happen with that. Russell Westbrook, they thought could be a third piece for the Lakers, a total disaster. So I think he'll go somewhere, but I don't think the Sixers are going to get as much as they're hoping, because if I'm a lot of these teams, like, especially if I'm like Denver, Boston, or Phoenix, Milwaukee, any of these on here, I want no part of James Harden. I've got my core set. I want to rock with the team I have. I feel like you bring in James Harden, that's just going to disrupt everything. Same goes for Kyrie Irving. I feel like those guys, they can score a lot, but in a way, they're more of a liability than a positive asset. To where if I'm a GM, unless they feel like they're going to fit in perfect, I'm not touching them.
Yeah, I agree with that. I just don't see a lot out there that's going to elevate a contender. And that brings us to the New Orleans Pelicans, who I think would like to think of themselves as a contender. Our Christian Clark, our Pelicans beat writer at NOLA.com, just reported this along with a couple of other people, saying that the Pelicans have declined Willie Hernangomez's team option. They're also did not extend the qualifying offer to Jackson Hayes, which makes Jackson Hayes an unrestricted free agent. What's the Pelicans' plan, you figure, this offseason? Are they happy with where they're at and just trying to fill in around the edges?
I think for the most part, I mentioned this on the Tuesday show, though, I think they could trade Jonas Valanciunas. I definitely think he's going to be on the trade block, because to me, he just didn't really – he wasn't bad last year, but he didn't really take any step forward from his first year with them. If anything, he kind of took a step back. So I think they might try to trade him, kind of shake things up. maybe go with a smaller lineup and have Zion play more in the post. And yeah, I mean, they'll probably bring in some other post presence to make up for if they trade Jonas, but I just think that could be someone they could just to kind of shake things up, because I feel like they didn't really do much last offseason. Where I feel like this offseason, it's because I mean the team was going really good with Zion, but I think there's some things they could shuffle around to make it a little bit better.
Yeah, yeah, it's they're in a weird spot. I mean, they need these guys to stay healthy and see exactly what they've got. That's really what they need. And that's why I wasn't in favor of trading Ingram or Zion, because you never got a chance to see them and see what they could do together. Maybe that backfires because maybe it never happens. But I think you've got to see what you've got when they play together. So that's the NBA free agency. We'll check in on that next week. Let's move to the other side of the Airline Drive complex and talk New Orleans Saints. Slow time of year for the NFL, obviously, but Derek Carr did make some headlines. He talked to the Fresno Bee, which I don't know I guess it's his hometown paper. He was born in Fresno. So, and said some very interesting things about the Raiders. And honestly, Spencer said way more than I thought he ever would about his breakup with the Raiders. Derek Carr, usually kind of I'm going to keep my hands clean, take the high road type guy. But he said a few things like, yeah, I was mad. I was very upset. He says, for lack of a better term, I was very upset. I was mad. You spend 9 years in a place, you have all the records, and you can play at a high level. And for something to get in the way, whether it was whatever reason, money related or whatever, injury related, I would have said, I don't even want the money just to play 2 more times in front of our fans. I didn't get that opportunity. So it definitely lit a fire inside me to keep going. That's one quote. The other one, quote, once they made my wife cry, that was pretty much over, end quote. So I think we knew it was a messy breakup. Like, there was no doubt about it. You don't bench a guy for the last 2 games and basically tell him to get out of the facility. Look, not Derek Carr's finest season last year. He would be the first to tell you that, but he also was still a productive player. So you don't tell a guy to just, GTFO the facility if you're not planning on breaking up with him. And from the other side, you see Derek's position where, hey, I'm a 4-time Pro Bowler. What are you doing to me? I've been here 9 years. I've poured my heart into this franchise, and you're just going to kick me to the curb. So it was messy, no doubt about it. And Derek's upset about it because, like I said, he's not normally the type of guy who would come out and say that out loud.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm glad to see that he's got that fire still. I think he's gonna bring that to the Saints and have a productive season. It's just kind of like, it's at the end of the day though, it's a business, so I feel like it's justified in a way. But at this point, which I think he's pretty much moved on from it. I hope, because if it's still lingering, like if he's still like tripping about that, that's not good. You got to move on from it, because it's a business at the end of the day. And I'm guessing that about when his wife cried, I'm guessing that was like during the season, like whenever it was going on, because it's like now it's like, come on, you gotta move on. You can't be worried about all that anymore. I mean, it's just, I know it's, when you put that many years into something and not have it work out, it's tough, especially when you're really passionate, which Derek seems like a very passionate player. But the bottom line was they weren't getting the results there for the Raiders. It was time for a change. Things just weren't working over there, and change can be hard sometimes, but it's a new chapter, and hope they're happy in New Orleans, because I think this city will treat them a lot better than with the Raiders.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Derek's probably pretty much over at this point, but if you do ask him point blank about it, like, yeah, I wasn't happy. And it's interesting. I'll continue my weekly conversations with Derek into the spring, or into the fall, excuse me. And so have a chance to ask him a little bit more about his decision to really kind of go public with those feelings. So look for the next installment of those once the Saints start training camp and get into the preseason. In the meantime, you talk about him moving on, and I like, this has been a very, very optimistic offseason for the Saints ever since they signed Derek in March. Through OTAs, through mini camp, it's been, well, Michael Thomas is coming back and everybody looks healthy and the rookies look good. And Derek's got rapport with everybody. And boy, the division's weak and the Saints are just going to go steamroll everybody. I mean, like everybody's optimistic in June in the NFL. Everybody's undefeated still. Even the teams who know they won't be very good, or well, hey, maybe our young guys will develop. We'll get a high draft pick, and then next year will be our year. Like I get all that. All that's very true. Uh, but the Saints' optimism seems above and beyond that. Um, Number one, have you noticed that? And number two, is it justified?
Oh yeah, I've definitely noticed it, and honestly, don't really think it's that justified. I really don't, because we saw the same thing last year. Oh, the division's bad. Oh, this that. But to me, this team's got to show it. Like they've got to show that they're truly the favorite for us to really get optimistic. I think they'll win the division. I think there's some value at plus 120 being that they're the favorite and you get plus odds. But I'm not going to put a bunch of money on that because I don't really feel that confident. The Falcons have a lot of playmakers on offense, and then the Panthers defense is solid. I know it's a rookie quarterback, but Bryce Young was a Heisman Trophy winner. I mean, it's like they're going to be solid. The only team I think is going to be a dumpster fire is Tampa Bay. So the thing that concerns me about this Saints team is the defense, the turnover on defense. I don't think they'll be quite as strong there. I think they'll still be an above average unit, but I don't think they'll be quite as strong there. They're going to have to force more turnovers for one, be more opportunistic. Dennis Allen's defenses are usually always solid, but they don't have quite as much talent to where they're not going to be able to get by on just stops, because they're not going to probably get as many. So they're going to have to create more turnovers, and the offense will have to be obviously a lot more efficient, which I think it will be with Derek Carr. The thing that scares me, though, is the injury risk and Alvin Kamara's suspension risk. You got Michael Thomas, who's always banged up, and you bring in Jamal Williams, who's good, but he's getting up in age for a running back. The rookie Kendre Miller's coming off a knee injury. Or the way Taysom Hill plays, he's very injury prone because he's always bashing into somebody. So it's like, with all that being said, I think they'll win 10 games and win the division, but NFL is. I mean, it can only be if you lose a couple of close games that you shouldn't have lost, then they're probably not going to win the division. I think they'll do it, but I don't think it's going to be pretty. I think it's going to be a lot of ugly games, but that's Dennis Allen's MO. I feel like he's an old school defensive, grinded out kind of coach. So I think they'll do enough to make the playoffs.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. You see they're favored to make the playoffs minus 180. The injuries are a big thing, and Horace mentioned it too. They need the injury gods to smile on them, or at least not frown on them. I mean, that's one thing about Derek is I think he's missed 2 starts because of injury in 9 years. He has not been injury prone. Now he's getting older. Does that change? You never know. But he has not been injury prone, and quite frankly, like yes, the Saints have guys who are getting older, and you could see some injuries. But they, quite frankly, over the last 2 years, they have had an amazing amount of bad luck when it comes to injuries. And so if you just expect that to regress back to just normal, Saints lost 268 games to injury last year, 4th most in the NFL, trailing only Tennessee, Denver, and Arizona, 3 other teams who are underwhelming. So if you look at that and say they can bounce back, that may be the biggest factor for me. If Michael Thomas can stay healthy, if obviously you want Carr, although Jameis Winston has to be in the upper echelon of backup quarterbacks. I mean, you feel pretty good about having him to put in there if something should happen to Derek. And then on the defense, there's just more depth everywhere, and so maybe you can deal with it. But yeah, defensive and offensive lines, you want to have those starters out there as much as you can. So I see some legitimate reasons for optimism. Do I think they're going to go win the Super Bowl? No, I don't. I don't think they have that in them, to beat the very, very good teams in the NFL. But the other reason for optimism is just the schedule. The schedule is so bad. I know we say, okay, the division, like I actually think Atlanta will be better than people think. I think if the Saints don't win the division, it's going to be the Falcons. But even beyond that, you're playing the AFC South. You get to play Tennessee, who's on the downward trend. You get to play Indianapolis, probably with a rookie quarterback. Houston with a rookie quarterback. They play the AFC, or excuse me, the NFC North, and so you get the Packers, who no longer have Aaron Rodgers. Jordan Love may be very good, but that's not the same as facing them before. You face Chicago Bears. You face the Vikings, who may be turning down. Like it's just a schedule that allows you to make some mistakes and still have plenty of opportunities to gain wins.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, it was just part of why I'm still picking them to win 10. If it had a tougher schedule, probably only 8 or 9. The thing is, though, this is the NFL. There are no gimme games. Like, even those AFC South games are probably going to be kind of tough because the Colts and Texans should both be better. And then Tennessee under Mike Vrabel always fights hard. So that's why I'm optimistic, but cautiously optimistic. I feel like the easy take is just, oh, well, they have an easy schedule and they're going to have a better offense. They're going to win 11 games or 12 games. That's just, it's not that simple. There's a lot of layers to this, like I went over, and I feel like there's enough concern to where I feel like 10 is, I don't want to say the ceiling, but I just don't see them any winning more than that because they just have, I feel like the loss of Caden Ellis is big. Like, not many people are talking about that, but now that he's gone, the linebacker depth very suspect behind Demario Davis and Pete Werner. And then the safeties, I mean, Honey Badger's getting up in age. Marcus Mays, not the most reliable. So I feel like safety and linebacker could be kind of a problem potentially. And then the offensive line should be better. But again, Trevor Penning, he's got to get out there and play. He missed pretty much all last season. I know he's fun to watch. Oh, he's pancake dudes in mini camp. Okay, it's like the Zion thing. Okay, hey, you look great off the floor, off the field, but at the end of the day, you've got to go out there and play. Who cares if you're going viral if you're not out there when it matters?
Yeah, and that's all fair. I think cautiously optimistic is probably the right answer in all of this. So, all right, we're going to wrap it up with our rants today. And I went across the pond and onto the lawns of Wimbledon for my rant. Wimbledon begins on Monday, and Novak Djokovic will be going for his yet another major, for a record extending major championship win for men. And he is a big favorite. We'll look at the odds here real quick. He's a minus 155 favorite over 127 other guys. Carlos Alcaraz of Spain, by the way, that's plus 850. I'm a typo waiting to happen today. But yeah, Novak Djokovic, and say what you will about the guy, he has gotten into controversy at certain times throughout his career. Alcaraz is actually plus 325. That's not even a typo. It's just straight up wrong. But what I will say, yeah, it's just time to appreciate Novak Djokovic for what he is. I mean, he is the type of athlete and has had the type of career that you will want to tell your grandkids about. If you have a grandkid who likes tennis, it's like, hey, I got to watch Novak Djokovic. You got to watch Novak Djokovic. Like, yeah, same thing with with a Tom Brady or a Michael Jordan or LeBron James. I mean, this guy is phenomenal. And the sort of three-headed rivalry between he and Roger Federer and Rafael Nadal is ending because Federer and Nadal are on the last legs of their careers because of age and injury, and Novak just keeps going. He has this amazing game. He plays a tremendously entertaining form of tennis, and then when he gets in close matches, he has the mental strength to kind of dig down and make it work. And so I would encourage people, even if you're not a huge tennis fan, take some time over the next 2 weeks. It's a slow time in sports in the sports calendar. There's no reason you can't take a couple of hours one morning or early afternoon and watch Novak Djokovic at Wimbledon and see the master at work, because that's what he is. He is the grandmaster of tennis, possibly in all of men's tennis history, and it's worth tuning in.
Yeah, I mean, now we got some free time. College World Series is over, NBA is over. Yeah, I might be able to tune in. Now I got some time to kind of breathe and just sit back. And yeah, it should be interesting to see if he can keep it going, because if he keeps this up, he's gonna go down as the GOAT for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's already there, and so now it's just let's see how far he can go with it, because he's got the career Grand Slam. I believe it's 3 times over. Nobody else has even done it twice over, but he's won all 4 Grand Slam events at least 3 times after winning the French Open, and on top of that, he has a chance to win the season Grand Slam, which has not been done in many, many years, since Rod Laver did it back in the 60s. He won the Australian Open. He won the French Open, obviously a big favorite here at Wimbledon, and then he'll have the U.S. Open in late August, early September to finish it up. So we'll see what he can do. Worth tuning in. And Spencer, another guy worth tuning into, switching over to the baseball field, Luis Arraez of the Miami Marlins has been flirting with the 400 mark Pretty amazing stuff, but not quite MVP level stuff, you say.
No, because I've heard our colleague Gabe Henderson was saying, "Oh, well, if he is 400, he's automatically MVP." Let's pump the brakes. Let's pump the brakes. We've got Ronald Acuna. We've got Freddie Freeman. I mean, Corbin Carroll we talked about earlier. We got some studs in the National League right now. Mookie Betts. I mean, we got some really good players. Guys that do a lot more than just hit for average. Guys that hit for power, drive in runs, steal bases, walk. I mean, that's the thing. This dude doesn't walk. He's just a free swinger who's been making a lot of contact and getting a lot of hits, which is, I mean, he's been great for the Marlins. The Marlins have been one of those surprise teams. So not to talk down on the guy. I mean, he's having an amazing season, but it's just MVP. I mean, to be the MVP, you got to be the total package. So, and he's just simply not. So to me, I'm just MVP talk. Stop it, y'all. This guy, he's not the MVP. He's one dimensional. Come on, y'all. I mean, just look at Ohtani. The reason he's the MVP, he does everything. You got to look at more than just one simple statistic. Like, it's a lot deeper than that.
I agree with you in that you don't look at one statistic, particularly not batting average, because it doesn't always tell you a whole lot. And Luis Arraez, by the way, is 22-1 in the market to win the NL MVP. So I think most people agree with you. I also don't think he's going to hit 400. What I will say is that I appreciate the statistical improbability, let's say, or almost impossibility of what Luis Arraez is doing. To hit 400 in this day and age hasn't been done, of course, since Ted Williams in 1941 hit 406. To do it in this day and age is almost impossible anyway. The league-wide batting average is down almost 30 points from when Ted Williams played, and there's a myriad of reasons for that. The pitchers are generally nastier. They throw harder. Also, they get changed out faster, so instead of facing the same guy 4 or 5 times in one game, you're facing 3 or 4 different pitchers every night. In fact, I saw a stat that Luis Arraez has already faced twice as many pitchers here on June 29th as Ted Williams faced the entire 1941 season when he hit 400. So he's having to do it off of more guys who are nastier. And as you mentioned, he doesn't walk. So in order to hit 400, he's going to need like 260 plus hits. The record for hits in a season is 262 by the great Ichiro. And so he would need to set multiple records to even have a chance at 400. Don't see it happening. And I agree with you. Even if it does, it should not be an auto MVP vote. When you look at a guy, what Ronald Acuna does with the power, with the base running, with the speed, with the defense. And so, I agree
defense,
with you.
I forgot to mention that. Yeah.
Looking at what Luis Arraez is doing is certainly praiseworthy. And I think it's going to be a fun second half of the baseball season following that and several other things. But MVP, I'll pass. Yeah. And Horace is right here. It's fun to follow. And he does have, I think over the last 50 years, I saw he has like the 6th highest batting average through the first half of a season. So it's clearly historic, but chances are he will fade and end up hitting somewhere in the 360s or 370s, which is still great. He'll still be the batting champ for the second straight year. He's just not going to hit 400.
Right. Yeah. So where did he come from? I mean, always with the Twins, he's always a good utility player. But yeah, he's really evolved into just a hitter. I mean, he just hits. Like, I mean, not flashy about it, but he puts the ball in play. And yeah, I mean, and the Marlins, like I said, are improved. They've been one of those sneaky teams where they don't look that good on paper, but you never know if they make the playoffs. Might be worth a long shot play.
He's a fun guy to watch. A lot of humpback line drives that fall in, and seems to be his sweet spot. I almost wonder if teams will start bringing the outfield in a little bit against him, because he seems to hit so many line drives into the shallow outfield. He doesn't hit for a ton of power. Normally, you'd never do that in today's game where you bring the outfielders in and risk something getting past them or over their heads. But with Luis Arraez, it's an interesting thing to think about. Especially if you're in a situation where a base hit hurts you more than it typically would. You got runners in scoring position or something. Bring those outfielders in and see if you can start to snare some of those liners before they fall. So interesting strategy point, interesting baseball season. And I think we had an interesting show. So I appreciate you all joining us. Go to the Bayou Bets YouTube channel and hit the subscribe button for us if you would. If you're not watching there already, we appreciate those of you who have done it. And we will be back. By the way, we are going to take Monday off for the holiday weekend. No show on Monday. So we will be back with you with Bayou Bets next Thursday at 4 p.m. For our producer, Zoe Collins Rath, and for Spencer the Guru Urquhart, I'm Zach Ewing. Thanks for watching, everybody.